Dober dan in lepo pozdravljeni na našem drugem masterclassu na festivalu stripa Tinta. Lepa hvala za obisk. Z nami je ena od glavnih gosti letošnjega festivala, Moa Romanova. Njeno razstavo lahko še za kakšen teden ujamete v baru Zorica na Bavarskem dvoru. Gre pa sicer za nadobudno švedsko avtorico, ki kljub temu, da je mlada in obetavna, je že prejela tudi izjemno razvpito nagrado, ki radi rečemo tudi stripovski Oskar, nagrado Willa Eisnerja, ki jo podeljujejo v Združenih državah Amerike. No, nekaj več o tem, na kakšen način se sama loteva stripa, ki ga lahko že vidite tudi zadaj, pa vam bo povedala kar sama, bo pa potekal masterclass v angleščini. Moa, thank you very much for coming and the stage is yours.
Oh, thank you. I just heard some buzzwords about the Oscar Prize. Short introduction on me. I'm a 30-year-old artist from Sweden. I haven't done comics for a super long time, maybe since 6 years or something. And I come from a background of more of like a fine art thing. I debuted in 2018 with a book called Alltid Fuck Up in Sweden, and it's a graphic novel about, it's autobiographical, and it's about like a year in my life, maybe 10 months, when I had suffering from insane panic attacks, and they were sort of like drug-induced panic attacks, and at the same, so it's a story about a 23-year-old girl like facing mental health problems for the first time. It sounds super depressing. It's not that depressing. It's kind of funny, but yeah, it's also kind of depressing. It's also like about, at the same time, it's a story of a matched with like a super famous Swedish television personality on Tinder, and we went on an insanely weird date. And he's like 53 at the time, and I'm 23, I think. And I'm super creeped out because he's so old. I didn't realize how old 53 is. No offense if anyone here. So I kind of ghosted him, and then he started being like, I want to be your Patreon. I want to give you money just to be you. I'm like, okay. So it's sort of about that relationship as well. That's like one of two driving forces of this debut book. This is my bragging slide. It's been heavily translated to some of the best languages in the world. And as I think the girl who presented me said, it won an Eisner Award, which I need to like push all the time because I'm so proud of this award, even though I slept through the ceremony and forgot that it was a ceremony. And I woke to like text messages and calls. Congratulations. I'm like, what happened? I just made my second graphic novel. It came out in Sweden this summer. It's called På glid, which is like on a downward slide, I guess, in English. And it's about, it's again autobiographical, same characters as in the first book. It's me and my best friends. It's about me coming with them on a punk tour, like they're musicians. So I'm going with them to America, and it's about like having so much fun that you don't really realize when it stops being fun, and it's only like super destructive. So it's also like, I feel like they're pretty similar, these two books. It's about something being very, very dark and very funny at the same time. This is my favorite page from the book. It's when I fell asleep on a lawn, and the cops came and thought that something terrible happened to me. But it's just, yeah, I had gotten beaten up, so it wasn't that weird that they asked. But I specifically remember answering, I'm an influencer. They asked what happened to me. A little bit of background to how I ended up being a comic artist, which is by chance, basically. Wasn't really, I was a blogger, a lifestyle blogger in Sweden in maybe like from 2010 to 2016 or 17 or something. It was kind of, I had like mediocre success with it, but somewhat of a success. It maybe, I got a paycheck from it, and I thought this is super cringe and embarrassing, like being a lifestyle blogger. And thinking back to it, it really was super cringe, but something that I didn't realize is that it would teach me how to write autobiographically, which is like, I realized that yesterday when I talked to one of the other comic artists who are here. It's like, oh yeah, that's like the girl version of a like autobiographical writing in like the 2010s. And it really taught me how to like express myself and like be funny in text form, like what people like, because you get such direct response on the internet. So this was, I did some, it was a bit about my art as well. You can see like an oil painting up there with the two girls, and I did some freelance illustrations, so it was kind of centered around dressing in latex nurse costumes and making illustrations for different like magazines and stuff. And I was super convinced I was going to be an artist, like no question about it. I'm going to work as an artist, work as a freelance illustrator, and it was very, very important for me to be good at what I did, for it to be very visible that I know my craft, and for it to be like something you can measure and something that everyone can agree on, which is a stupid goal. And this is how my drawings looked. They're pretty like based on some sort of like realism and very figurative drawing style and painting style, and I always used photo references. Everything I did. I took pictures of my friends. I didn't like trace the images, but I printed it out and looked at it, like, because it just became so important for me to have it be visibly like good, for me to be like good at drawing. So it became an obsession for me, and I couldn't draw anything without reference photos, which was sort of a secret as well to me. I didn't want people to know. I want people to think that I just sat down and did this in 3 hours or something. But in real life, I had to have a photo shoot with my friends and like dress them up and have the photos turn out okay, so the painting would turn out okay. So I kind of like applied to go to a fine art school in Sweden. Insanely convinced that I was going to get into this school. I like checked out apartments in the city. Like told people like I'm gonna move to Umeå this fall. I'm gonna study, and they're like, "Oh, you got accepted?" And I'm like, "No, I'm gonna get accepted, of course." Didn't get accepted. My dream was crushed. I was devastated. They didn't think I was good. What's the most important thing in the world for me? And so I checked lists for art school that still was open to apply to, because this was really late in the year. And saw like comic school. Because I dated a guy who read some comics, and I kind of wanted to impress him as well. So I was like, yeah, I made some comics. I might go to the comic school. super far down south in Sweden, in Malmö. Applied, made my first comics, this is 2017. Got in, which is a miracle. They looked like shit, really terrible. And when you make comics, you can't draw from reference photos for every, what do you call it, frame? Panel, yeah. It would like, how many photo shoots would I have to have? Which is something that I soon realized. And I went from drawing like this to drawing like this. And this was very hard for me to like take myself down a few notches, to be like, it's okay for it to look shitty. But it was a really, really hard experience for me to be like, okay, it isn't about being like as good as possible at drawing perfect eyelashes. It's about like telling a story. It's more of like, this is when I like discovered how terribly devastating making art can be and how fun it could be. Before it had almost been like a race against myself to just make a prettier drawing. Felt like I was a baby again. And I hated being a baby, both times. The first terrible year of making comics, sort of like this. What is my style? What am I gonna do? This is terrible. Why do I suck so bad? And I had a really hard time like facing these questions. And I've been skipping school, almost every art school I've gone to and every regular school I've gone to. But this time I decided to actually go to the classes and do the assignments and do them terribly. So this is like, it's so stupid that I'm showing the only page that I'm proud of from this year. It's a beautiful man morphing into an animal. But yeah, it was heavy for my confidence, and I sort of found my solutions drawing. So like these were my please. No, there we go. This was what I found out in that first year of going to comic school in Malmö. Learning to be okay with feeling like I suck shouldn't say the word. This happened almost organically from me having to draw so much. I started working digitally. We had a thing in school that was called 24-hour comic challenge, and they locked down the school for 24 hours, and you had to make 24 pages of comics during these 24 hours. Otherwise, you were punished. And this pushed me into working digitally, because I spent the first 8 hours making a perfect grid by hand. Didn't even fill it with anything. It's just like, this is the most beautiful grid. And then like, oh fuck, got so much left to do. So I just sat down by a computer that had one of these Wacom drawing pads and was like, I'm gonna make the most idiotic digital comic ever. And this is a panel from that comic. And I worked in this insanely difficult manga program at the time that I'm still proud that I managed to figure it out in the end. Just staying in school, drawing. Even I just put my mind to it. I had like a gym guy, like a buff gym guy, rise and grind mindset during this year. And I started realizing that comics isn't just imagery. To me, it was in the beginning. So I started like playing with stories, and that actually happened during the 24-hour comics that I really... it was a story about like... oh, no, I shouldn't tell. A bit too graphic. And then I started reading more comics, because I didn't read that much comics before, and I discovered Anna Fisch, a German comic artist, who has a lot of silent pages, but there's a clear storyline. It's about a bird, a really weak bird who wants to be an artist and who everyone hates, and who's just kind of bullied by everybody, and it's so good. And I started reading Simon Hanselman, which is an Australian comic artist that's really inspired me in storytelling. He's always says he's very inspired by The Simpsons, and storytelling like in episodes. So I started like consuming stuff that I actually really enjoyed during this year, and I was like, I kind of love comics. Who would have thought? And something that I really found out is, this is a super complicated way of saying that one of the great things about comics is that it's both imagery and text. So if your image sucks, you can just spruce up the text a bit. And if your text sucks, you can just put an extra half an hour into the image. So you can sort of like balance, save your work by being like, okay, yeah, this image sucks, but like, so now I need to like make up a funny joke. You can always like mend comics by improving the text or the image. This led to me actually having fun with art for the first time in years. It really, really was one of the most important years of my life this year at Malmö Comic School. I started like drawing in a super different style from what I started out doing. Kind of like graphic stuff, working digitally almost always. Finding out stuff that I like. Now I'm sort of like known for drawing tiny, tiny heads and super giant bodies and big hands. That started out as a mistake in a panel that I just circled in with a red pen. I was like, this, I'm gonna keep this. Throw everything else away from this comic. So just from drawing so much, I found stuff that I like enjoyed, and I felt like I was on like a fun journey, having fun with art and allowing myself to not always aim for being measurably good. Just aim for it to be fun and for it to be exciting and like exploring something. And this is when I did the first draft for... No. I'm like a boomer. First draft for Alltid Fucka Upp, my debut book, who's now out in Slovenia, and then you can buy here. So this is when I match with the old guy on Tinder. And this is a story that I used to tell drunk at the bar so many times. My friends knew it, like they knew every punchline I had, so I had to find a new audience, you guys. And I thought like this story has something, and it's also kind of funny because it's always like a good thing to write something pretty shitty about a famous guy. It's like everyone will listen because everyone's either jealous or hates old guys. No offense again. Oh my God, the ageism in this talk. And I had a teacher in school, Sara Hansson, that really, really stood up for me. And I had some issues with the other teachers there, and she really stood up for me and pushed me to make this comic. And just, I'm sort of like, I need a lot of compliments and insurance, like to do something. I need to be showered in love, and that she understood that and met my needs, which is not something that I can demand from anyone, but she really, she was like, "You're the most talented, the prettiest." I was like, "Yes." The funniest also, yes. Which really helped me. So I'm like forever grateful to her. She's also a comic artist in Sweden. She does more of like satire stuff. She's my angel. So then, second year of the comic school, you got to apply with a idea for a book, and only like half of the class gets in. So we were 25 people, I think, in year 1, and in year 2 there were only like 10 or 11. So I was super scared of not getting into the second year, because it's super difficult to work on a book while balancing a job and stuff. So it's pretty much thanks to me getting into the second year that I actually managed to make a book. Alltid Fucka Upp is born in this second year in Malmö. Selling the book, I used slyness and lies and deceit to sell it to the publishers. I made this copy text when I pitched the book that was like, "Oh, Moa Romanova has been featured in Vice and Elle magazine and stuff." Absolute lies. And I also like pitted them against each other. We have like 2 major publishers in Sweden, and I was like, "Oh yeah, but they want to publish mine, so I'm probably gonna sign with them unless you just present me a contract right now." And they're like, "Oh, okay." Got super stressed. This really worked. I would recommend it to everyone. And unfortunately, they copy-pasted my lies to the back of my book. So when I saw it in print for the first time, I was like, "Oh, it's beautiful." No. But then I've been, like everything that I wrote that I had done, I've now done. So it's not a lie anymore, which is good. I'm gonna see how I'm clocking in. I was thinking like, what would I want to see as like a creator or like a comic artist or someone just starting out, and I figured seeing like sketches is something that I usually enjoy doing. This is process and order in Swedish. I start out with like regular A4 paper and like mechanical ballpoint pen that's erasable, and I make a really sloppy sketch. And this is where the dialogue is set. You know, it's where I almost never change the dialogue from this stage. So the dialogue is more of like, I'm one of those like psychic people who like write and then see. It's like a sort of fortune telling. That's what I do when I make these dialogues, and I feel like that creates a very like realistic dialogue to me, at least. And like right before this, it's autobiographical, so there's not much of like story building. It's just my diary, because I have no fantasy, which is something I recommend to everyone as well. Like, use your life. Like, I have a buddy in Sweden who's a semi-successful comic artist who made his most liked comic is him describing what's in his bathroom cupboard. And it's just such a good comic. So well told. It's thrilling. So you can like take, to me, pretty much anything. I love reading a book about someone scrolling, like doing how many steps, doing like a scrolling Wikipedia. I would be like, this is amazing. Because it's all about how you tell it, and how you draw it. So yeah, it looks like this in the beginning. That's for me to find the dialogue. And then I take a picture of this with my iPhone, airdrop it to my iPad or computer, put it in a layer and like lower the opacity so I can like barely see it. And then I draw like a real drawing on top of it. But I always use this analog drawing as like a starting point. It's like I can't seem to go completely digital for some reason. It's like a lot of artists have the same problem. Like I do almost everything digitally, but if I'm not able to do the sketch analog by first, I won't do it. So this is done in Illustrator, the first book, and then we have these. The first coloring is just black coloring, and the little specks are the terrible manga program I talked about. It's good for that sort of stuff. It's like I love. It's called raster in Swedish. Do you know what it is? Isar? Yeah, raster. Yeah. And they have like a huge library of all these different raster. So and then I do like a super simple coloring in Photoshop. With this just accent colors, and to me, I think Anna High Fish is the one who inspired me to do yellow speech bubbles, because I feel like it really makes the image a bit easier to look at, and like distinguishing between the drawings and the text easier. I think maybe Simon does something as well. Yeah, it just makes it's a map for the eye on how it's going to travel through the images, I think. I didn't have an image of the Slovenian book, but just imagine this to be the Slovenian book. Last part that I thought might be interesting for people working with comics or illustration is what kind of material I use. This is like secrets we often keep to ourselves, or at least some artists do. But this is what I use. It's an iPad Pro with just the iPad pen. I used to use a Wacom Cintiq, but now I'm like only working on my iPad. So. And the apps and software I use are Procreate. It's for iPad. It's like the program for really, really dumb people. It's like Photoshop made for someone who's very challenged mentally. When I have to, I use Illustrator and Photoshop. I'm way too dumb for it, but when I have to, I do it. Clip Studio Paint is the manga program that has all the raster. I really recommend getting it. It's super cheap. It's impossible to understand, but you can just steal all their raster. That's what I've done. And what I work with, like when I work by hand analogly, is a Friction clicker. Friction. It's the first time I saw the name of the pen was when I put this together. It's the only pen I'll ever use. I swear by this pen. It's like looks like a ballpoint ink pen, but it's erasable, which really like what do you call blyerts? Like the regular pen. Like what is a regular pen? That's like black and a graphite pen. I used to work with graphite, and it's just smeared it everywhere, always like looked myself in the mirror when I came home and had like a mustache of graphite and stuff. So I was just so blessed when I found this friction clicker. It's super cheap. You can find it in like all bookstores. It's I swear by it. And I use a blue one for some reason. I think it looks super professional when you do like a blue sketch. Like I'm an architect. Just a stapled sketchbook, something with thicker pages. So you don't see through the pages. That's an ick of mine. And it's just like this one. I use it for everything. I buy like kilos of these ones and drag them to the studio and then just go through them. I like go through one of these a month maybe. And I think this is like what I could ram into like 35, 40 minutes. Do anyone have any questions? Yes? There's a microphone coming your way.
Hello. So do you ever go back to your previous drawing style? Do you ever have desire for that, or if you're not, are you planning?
If I miss my old style, yeah, I do. I miss feeling on top of the world. I was like a coke addict, being like, I'm the best, just pushing myself all the time. But I can't use reference photos. Now I have a rule against using reference photos because it killed my creativity, I think. I remember being like, oh, a cup. I need to find the perfect image of a cup if I'm going to be able to draw it. Just like I needed like the insurance of the actual object on a photo to dare to draw it. So now I'm super, except for cars. I have these tiny toy cars that I put up in the studio, and I take an image of it and I trace it. Because I never learned how to draw cars. Don't tell anyone that. And if this is going up on YouTube, we're going to bleep that whole section. It was only for this crowd. Any other ones? Okay. You can just come up to me at any time here and ask me stuff. I'll be browsing around here. I'll down a beer right now. If anyone wants to come and say hi, I'll sign books and everything. Thank you guys for having me.